No,
that you're
is it
talking
regime
about.
change?
And
You can answer that question. Or do you change a
obviously
regime
it
when you
depends on
arrest
your
or kill the
perception
president?
of the issue. I mean,
Well, how
the
do you?
issue-
How do you?
I don't know. I think it's
Okay.
an interesting debate, but I think in the case of Venezuela, there's
Okay,
been
well,
change in the
let me
government's
just
behavior.
say then, okay, you are uncomfortable having your own words read to you.
Watch this. This is the exact moment Senator Tim Kaine accuses a Pentagon official of dodging the truth, saying he's uncomfortable having your own words read to you. Why couldn't he answer a simple question about regime change? If you believe in accountability, transparency, and putting America first, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. You're not going to want to miss this breakdown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Secretary. I don't like responding to colleagues after they've left the room, but colleagues race to other committee hearings. I get that. Senator Mullen asserted that the angst on this side of the aisle is because we don't like President Trump. He has misstated the concern. I think I can speak for most of my colleagues who have concerns and say our concern is this. Have we learned nothing from 25 years of war in the Middle East? More than 14,000 U.S. troops and contractors killed, more than 61,000 U.S. troops and contractors injured, including one on our committee, hundreds of thousands of civilian lives lost in Iraq and Afghanistan, $8.2 trillion by estimate is what the U.S. taxpayer has paid for the wars and the necessary VA care for those who've suffered and the debt we incurred to fund the wars. And so, you may criticize us for raising these concerns, but the nation, my Virginians, have lived through repeated deployments in wars that produced very little that people can see was worth that degree of sacrifice. To also make some corrections, for the record, the Iran deal was a bad deal. Well, both President Trump's Secretaries of Defense and State suggested he stay in the deal. He ignored their advice to get out of it, that it was going to lead Iran to a nuclear weapon. The first paragraph of the deal, Iran committed that it would never seek, develop, or acquire nuclear weapons. That was a forever promise that could have been enforced until President Trump tore up the deal. There was an assertion that, President Obama took us to war in Syria in 2013. No, President Obama proposed military action in 2013, and Democrats forced him to bring it to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee because we said you don't have the authority to wage war without a vote of Congress. We have upheld this constitutional standard against Democratic presidents, and we're going to uphold it pursuant to our oath against a Republican president. So that's what we are worried about. Have we learned nothing? We hope that this will not be a war that will lead to so many casualties, but 6 families are already being informed that their loved ones will never come home. And it may well be more than that.
So here's what went down. Senator Tim Kaine opened by pushing back on claims that critics of recent policy decisions are just politically motivated. He argued, this isn't about partisanship, it's about whether the United States has learned anything from over 2 decades of war in the Middle East. Now that's a point worth taking seriously. The cost of those wars, thousands of American lives lost, tens of thousands injured, and trillions of taxpayer dollars spent, is something every American should reflect on. But here's where things get interesting. Kaine then pivoted to the Iran nuclear deal, defending it and criticizing the decision to withdraw. From a right-wing perspective, this is where many Americans strongly disagree. The deal, in the eyes of many conservatives, failed to permanently stop Iran's nuclear ambitions and gave too much away for too little in return. Walking away wasn't reckless. It was a recalibration of leverage. Kaine also emphasized Congress's constitutional role in approving military action, pointing out that even under Barack Obama, Democrats insisted on oversight. And on that principle, there's actually common ground. The Constitution is clear, war powers matter, and they shouldn't be taken lightly by any administration, Republican or Democrat. But then came the key moment.
Mr. Colby, the National Defense Strategy, as the policy lead at the Pentagon, you play a key role in draftsmanship discussion, but then it goes up the ranks and it gets approved by the Secretary and it also gets approved by the President, correct?
Certainly, I think it's fair to say, I would say this strategy has been more extensively coordinated, not only within the department, but at the
But just
White
in
House.
terms of approval, this does not get published on January 23 without the secretary and the president saying, I'm fine with
Well, I
this.
wouldn't get specifically into the specifics of coordination. Obviously, it's signed by the Secretary of War.
Yeah.
It's on his statutory responsibilities.
Okay.
But I would also say, I would assert that this is the most extensively
Great.
coordinated defense strategy.
So the
probably
Secretary
in
of
this.
War is not going to issue it unless the president agrees. Now, this was January 23, 6 weeks ago.
I would say
So
we
let-
don't do anything, and certainly not something
Yeah.
as significant as this without being aligned with the president. We pay a
So
lot
you,
of attention
yeah,
to
so
that.
you've agreed with me and taken 10 seconds of my time to do so. So, the national defense strategy, no longer will the department be distracted by interventionism, endless wars, regime change, and nation building. Venezuela and Iran. I'm not going to ask you whether or not that's interventionism because I'm not going to embarrass you by making you try to say that it's not.
I already
It's
did with Senator
interventionism.
Warren, so
It's
we went around.
interventionism. Second, we hope it's not endless war, but we don't know how, in particular, Iran's going to go. Third, is arresting Maduro and killing the Ayatollah, is that regime change?
Kaine zeroed in on the Pentagon's national defense strategy, which explicitly states the U.S. wants to move away from endless wars, interventionism, manned regime change. Sounds good, right? That's something many Americans, especially on the right, have been calling for. Yet Kaine pointed out what he sees as a contradiction: actions involving Iran and Venezuela that could be interpreted as exactly that, intervention or even regime change. So he asked a simple question. If you target a foreign leader or support actions against them, isn't that regime change? And this is where the Pentagon officials struggled.
Senator, I don't think I think the Venezuela Operation Absolute Revolve is a perfect example of how
You know,
we're not
but,
getting.
just
and I think,
answer my
Senator,
question.
If I may respond earlier, I think absolutely we have learned the lessons, and I thought Secretary
Okay,
Hegseth
but
expressed that
is
very well
the
yesterday.
arrest of a foreign leader and the assassination of another, is that regime change, contrary to what you said 6 weeks ago in the document?
Well, what I would say is that both operations have learned the precise
Yeah,
lessons
no,
that you're
is it
talking
regime
about.
change?
And
You can answer that question. Or do you change a
obviously,
regime
it
when you
depends on
arrest
your
or kill the
perception
president?
of the issue. I mean,
Well,
the
how do you,
issue-
how do you?
I don't know. I think it's
Okay.
an interesting debate, but I think in the case of Venezuela, there's
Okay,
been a
well,
change in the
let me
government's
just
behavior.
say then, okay, you are uncomfortable having your own words read to you, and you're uncomfortable saying that the
not uncomfortable,
assassination of a
Senator.
leader
Perfectly
and the
comfortable to
arrest
have
of a leader,
discussion.
you won't acknowledge that's regime change. I think that's very instructive to those listening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Instead of giving a direct answer, he danced around the question. No clear yes, no clear no, just vague explanation. That's when Kaine delivered the line that's now going viral, accusing the official of being uncomfortable having your own words read to you. Now, let's be honest here. From a patriot standpoint, the issue isn't whether America should defend its interests. We absolutely should. Strength on the world stage matters. Deterrence matters. Leadership matters. But clarity matters too. If the U.S. says it's moving away from regime change and endless wars, then the strategy needs to match the actions. And when officials are asked direct questions, the American people deserve direct answers, not word game. At the same time, Kaine's argument exposes something else. Washington still hasn't fully reckoned with its past decisions. There's a tension between avoiding endless conflict and maintaining American strength abroad. And that's the real debate. How do we protect American interests without repeating the mistakes of the past? That's the question both parties need to answer, and moments like this show, we're not quite there yet. This exchange is just one piece of a much bigger story unfolding in Washington right now, one that could shape U.S. foreign policy for years to come. If you want to see more breakdowns of moments the mainstream media won't fully explain, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. And stay tuned, because the next video dives even deeper into how these policies could impact America's future on the global stage.